But thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you guys coming out and being here with us today. Because last week, Susan and I, we had our big wedding ceremony. It was like one of those things, yes, yes. We don't want to just get married once, we wanted to get married twice. Yeah, that's how great it was. But it was, let me tell you, I know today, it's a really hot day today in Orange County. But let me tell you, last week as well, it was really, really, really hot. And wearing a suit and everything, it made it even like hotter. It was ridiculous. It was so hot that like sweat was going in my eyes. And I was trying to blink the sweat out, like please go somewhere else. But it kept landing in my eyes and I was like, right? And I even had to get my handkerchief and start dabbing the officiant as well, because he was marrying us, and like even he was doing the same technique I was doing, right? Like blink it away, but he couldn't. So I got my handkerchief and started to like dapper his forehead, and we made it work even though it was hot. But of course, we're there together, and one of the big things we try to do when we're up there is we need to focus, because we're about to make these vows. These really, really important vows of promise to love her, promise to be faithful, and all these different things. And when you make these vows, they call you out, and everyone's eyes are on you, and making sure that you say I do, and you do it like properly, right? So we're saying these vows, and he was sharing Anthony, do you? Susan, do you? And at the end, we said, I do. And it was like one of the prettiest moments. Everyone's like, yay, all this fun things. But when you look at the vows, it's very beautiful, right? The vows, in sickness and in health. Will you be with her? Like, yes. Do you promise to love her with all your heart? And you're like, yes, I do. And it's so beautiful. People are crying. Oh my gosh, our kids are all grown up, right? But if we look at the vows in a more realistic point of view, it's the ones that don't sound as sexy, right? As, till death do us part. If we make realistic vows, it'd be kind of funny. I know, in my opinion, I would prefer more realistic vows rather than rather in sickness and in health. Do you promise to be together? I wish the vows were more like, when I'm sick, promise to take care of me because I am the biggest baby when I am sick. Or I love if the vows would share if I tell you I don't want anything, always get me something. Because I don't want it, but I want you to want it for me. Or one of my favorites, if you guys have not experienced it, is I vow to always make sure there is toilet paper in the restroom. Yes, I have been caught many times where I have left her stranded without toilet paper, and I have gotten a lot of trouble for that. Because these vows are more realistic. They sound like, that's true. That's what we need. Because the other vows, the grand, nice ones, they sound so heavy. And sometimes we feel that we are not sure if we're going to be able to even keep it. We're not even sure if we even want to keep it, in a way. In richer or in poorer. I don't know if we want to be poor, but let's be richer. That's fine. That's a good area to be. Or maybe when we say that we're going to prioritize you, I'm going to make you my priority. But then we understand that in life, sometimes our spouse isn't our priority. Maybe sometimes we are so angry at a person in our lives, whether it be a family member, a friend, your significant other. And you have this tension because someone messes up. Because we understand that in relationships, all relationships, they're not perfect. In all relationships, someone is going to mess up. But when we mess up, really matters. So today, I want to ask this question for us. Is as we are in as we finish up the healthy relationship series, I want to ask this. Because in all relationships, we do mess up. But then what do I do when I mess up? And as speaking out of a newlywed man, I have already messed up many times. And then I ask, what do I do when I mess up? And I want to look at this story. And we shared about this before, but this story is just so compounded with richness that I want to look at the story again. We're going to look at the story of Zacchaeus in Luke chapter 19. And if you look at Luke chapter 19, we'll have the projection up as well. If you want to look at it on your phones, you totally can. And we're going to look at the story of Zacchaeus and Jesus. And we look at verse 19, and it says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. And a man was there named of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to Zacchaeus, "Come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So Zacchaeus came down and at once and welcomed Jesus gladly. And all the people who saw this, they began to mutter. They began to say, who is he that he has gone to be with the guest of a sinner? But Zacchaeus, he stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost." And the reason why I love this story, because it is the story of what does it mean to do when we really messed up. Because tax collectors, if you guys are unfamiliar, the New Testament used tax collectors to show a very big, important piece of information, because everybody hated tax collectors. If anyone would say like, this is one thing we all don't like, it's this. And that would be for everyone there would be tax collectors. Because tax collectors, this is probably one of the first things that they would say, oh, if you're a tax collector, you're a sinner. If you're a tax collector, you're just an evil person. It was right off the back. And a lot of times we see tax collectors meet Jesus, or Jesus uses tax collectors in stories. Because tax collectors, what they would do back in the days, they would side with the Roman government, the government that was opposing the Jewish people, the Israelites, right? And they would cheat their own people. They would cheat their own people so that they can get money, so that they can get whatever they needed. They were the type of people that they would not mind backstabbing anyone to get what they wanted. And because of that, many people hated tax collectors. But not only was Zacchaeus a tax collector in this area, he was a very, very successful tax collector. That means he did his job well. He did his job of taking money very well. Because the Roman government, all they needed was a certain amount to be given, right? So if a good would pass through Judea or from the east to the west in Jericho, if they would pass down, all they needed was like, hey, we just need 10% of whatever they're having, then that's fine, and you can tax them the rest. And a lot of tax collectors, that's what they would do. They would tax much more than what the Roman government would require. If you're only supposed to give $100 for taxes, they would require you to give $500, and they will pocket $400. And a lot of times, no one could do anything about that because they were backed by the Roman government. So if you didn't pay it, they can criminalize you. They can put you in jail. So everyone hated these tax collectors. And Zacchaeus, he did that very, very well. But then he heard that this man named Jesus was coming. And of course, Jesus was having a name already. He was already traveling, doing his ministry, healing the sick, bringing demon-possessed people into back from redemption. He was doing all these things already. And the name of Jesus was being shared throughout the land. So even Zacchaeus himself heard that this man named Jesus is passing by my town, and I need to see him. I need to see him. So he goes and he climbs a tree because he's short. And because of that, he goes up and he's trying to find and see this man named Jesus. But Jesus, as he is walking, we don't know if Jesus saw Zacchaeus from afar and said, who is that guy climbing the tree, and started to walk towards him. We don't know why he walked towards him. Maybe it was all planned, maybe it wasn't, but that's what we believe, is that Jesus actually in his path saw Zacchaeus and told him, hey, I need to meet with you today. If anything, no, I need to go to your house today. And that was a huge, huge blessing. Let me tell you, it was a huge honor to go into someone's house. It was a huge honor. And that's why people were kind of like talking bad about Jesus. It's like, why? Of all people, he can go into someone's house. Of all people, why would he go to Zacchaeus? Why would he choose his house? And there was this huge, huge turmoil of what is Jesus even doing? Because entering to someone's home means a very special deal. It really does. Maybe for you guys, I have a certain rule in my house. My rule is that, if you guys don't know, I have something called outside clothes, and then I have something called house clothes. And what that means is that I wear clothes like outside, like in public, but when I enter into the house, I change into something called house clothes because, it's like I feel like it's cleaner. It doesn't have like the outside dust and everything. And that's what I use to like sit on my bed and anything or whatever. And I do not like having outside clothes on my bed, right? Only inside house clothes on my bed, right? I'm one of those types of people. Because it's a very special, for me, it's like a cleansing, all the great people, all that stuff. But we have rules for that, for me, or maybe you guys have different rules. Some of y'all maybe have, like, when you enter into the home, you take off your shoes. Maybe some of y'all have house slippers. I don't know, maybe when you enter the house, you get water. I don't know, everyone has different rules for their house. But my house is house clothes, right? And because of that, we know that entering into someone's space is actually very important. Entering into someone's space is actually a very big privilege. Because we read how Jesus impacted Zacchaeus, how he entered into his home. And honestly, I actually love that picture of entering into someone's home, because that picture is something very special, not only back in the day, but it's also something very special for us today. Maybe physically entering into someone's home, or maybe even just personally of our own hearts, of our own home. Because have you ever met someone who came into your house and they're like, oh my goodness, thank you so much for inviting me to your house, but then all of a sudden they start rearranging your furniture? They're like, you know what? Your couch, it doesn't belong here. The feng shui, it just doesn't match. You should bring your couch over here, bring the TV over here, have your dog bed over here. There you go. Now your house is good. Like, has anyone ever done that to you? And hopefully not. Hopefully not that anyone went into your house and all of a sudden rearranged everything. Or someone comes into your own home whom you invited, and they start bad-mouthing your own home. Yeah, the couch color doesn't really match like everything else. It's kind of ew. Don't do that. But a lot of times we experience that, maybe not actually when someone enters into our house, but maybe personally we have in our own personality. When someone comes into your life, maybe someone said, like, you know what, you got to change your life. You got to move things here. You got to do things there. You know what? You're not right. Don't do that. No, that's so bad. And they come into your life just changing everything. And you're just like, whoa. Why are you moving the furniture in my life? This is my stuff. This is my area. Why are you moving it? And I love how Jesus asks, or maybe even tells Zacchaeus, I need to come to your home. I need to go to your home. I need to sit with you. I need to eat with you. I need to know you. And whether it was the actual, like I just need to come to your house, right? Or maybe it was like the spiritualness of entering into his own self. We see that Zacchaeus opened himself to that. He's like, come, Jesus, please come into my house. Please sit here, eat these cakes, have some tea, like make yourself comfortable, please. And we see Zacchaeus opening not only his home, but also his heart. Because there's something special when we invite someone into our hearts, into our space. Susan and I, I think people know that Susan now has had influence in my room because everything in my room now matches. The cabinets, the colors, it's a vibe. It matches. And she would tell me, like, Anthony, like, isn't this great? And I'll be like, oh, it is great. She's like, no, Anthony, isn't this great? And I'm like, yeah, it works. And she's like, you don't get it. Look at how the cabinets and the end tables, they match. Look how the end tables and our drawers, they match. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Because for me, I didn't really care about the colors and how it matched. What I cared about was functionality. Like I just cared about, could it hold my towels? Perfect. Could it hold my clothes? Great. Sometimes I would have drawers that didn't even match. Gasp, I know. Like I would even buy drawers that weren't even the same company. Like one will look a certain way, then another will look another thing, and another thing will look like something else. And I thought it just added character, but it just looked ugly. A matter of perspective. But there's something special when you invite someone into your space, into your home. Because when you invite them into your space, see, something changes inside of us. There's something that changes when we voluntarily invite someone to play a role in our space, in our life. Because there's something very different when we go into someone's house or when we invite someone into our house and then they begin to start rearranging certain things. Like this doesn't match and that whatever. Versus when we invite someone into our house, into our space, and then we ask them, hey, I know you did interior design. I know you're really good with fashion and everything. Like, can you help me make my room look better? Can you help me be more organized? And there's something a lot more special when we open ourselves up to allow change into our lives. Because you see, that's exactly what Zacchaeus has done. Zacchaeus has been living his life a certain way. He's been lying, cheating, stealing, doing everything he can to make a life for himself. Because we don't know how the brother grew up. We don't know how he himself may have lacked self-confidence, how he may have lacked being teased or something. Because we know this man was short in stature. We know this man had issues in a way where we may not even know. But we know that he needed and wanted something. Even though he could have had anything and everything he could have asked for. Anyone could have asked for. He had money. He had power. He had land. He had anything and everything anyone could have wanted. But he still wanted something more. And with us, we may sometimes feel that as well. We may sometimes feel like, I don't have anything, Anthony. I don't have it all. I need more. Some of us can be feeling, Anthony, why would I complain? I have a job, I have a roof over my head, I have 2 dogs. Like, why would I complain? But there is something deep inside of our hearts, something deep inside of our soul that we actually try to fill. There's something deep inside of us that we try to kind of glaze over or we try to fill with something that we think will work. Whether it be our job, our relationships, our status, whatever it may be, we try to fill something inside of us And sometimes it works, but just for a moment. Sometimes it's the fix, just for right now. And then we're looking again and again to fill what we've been feeling empty. And Zacchaeus was looking at this man. Jesus says, I know that this man has something that I don't know. I know that this man has been healing, has been talking, has been teaching, and he has something that I don't know. But I want to know. I want to know enough that I am willing to do things that I will never do. I'm willing to try things that maybe it will work. I am willing to even see a glimpse of who he is. And maybe something will change in me. And I love how Jesus meets us. Because sometimes when we just give a little, sometimes we just take one step forward, Jesus comes and he just enacts full embrace to us. When we just show even a little interest, we see Jesus come surround us with endless love. But of course, we see that Zacchaeus was a man that had a past, as do we all. We know that Zacchaeus was a man who has hurt people, who has been a person that his actions and his mistakes were the consequences of people. Because why can't we just be the type of person that says, hey, God, just love me and then I won't change? You know, God will love me for who I am. God will just let me be who I be. But we see that God, when we meet God, actually, when we meet any type of relationship that we have, there is some change that always happens. Anytime we enter into a relationship, there is a change that happens within us. And that we choose to do something maybe we thought we never would have done, but we chose to do it because of the relationship that we're in. And that relationship, that one word is commitment. What do we choose to do? When I messed up, when I feel like I messed up and I did something, what do I choose to do? And one of the big things we learned before is when we talked about sorry, when we said sorry was not enough, we learned that sorry, apologizing, is not a magic word. It's not going to make everything better. An apology is just the beginning. But what makes an apology stick, what makes the mistake and everything we do, what makes it happen or that makes us help us move on and heal from it is the commitment of what we do afterwards. And we see for Zacchaeus is that he just didn't say, oh my gosh, thank you, Jesus, for being in my life. You know, thank you. Dinner was great. Your company was awesome. You know, we got to do this again sometime, all right? You know, and have him on his way. No, we see that this relationship, that this commitment, that what happened was that after he met Jesus, there was a commitment that was made to fix his mistakes. And we see that Zacchaeus, what he says is, you know what? As people were talking like, man, Zacchaeus is never going to change. Zacchaeus is always going to be this type of person. Why is Jesus even wasting his time with him? But we see Zacchaeus standing up and telling the people, you know what? Telling Jesus, you know what? You know what I'm going to do? I am going to give back. I am going to give some of my property out to the poor, out to the people. And I love that little detail because he's not saying, I'm going to give some of my earnings. I'm not going to give what I just make to the poor or to whomever. No, he's saying that I am going to give some of my property out to people. Things that I own, things that I have, things of whatever be investments or whatever you want to say, I am going to give back. And guess what? Now I'm not going to only stop there. I'm also going to commit that I am going to give 4 times back to the people whom I cheated. And he committed to all the people before Jesus, before everyone. And he says that I commit that I am going to do this. And because of that, and we see this, and because of this, we see that Jesus even responding, because Jesus didn't say, hey, you need to give your property to the poor, Zacchaeus. Oh, okay, Jesus, I'll do that. Zacchaeus, you also need to give back 4 times the amount you cheated people. Okay, Jesus, I'm sorry. We don't see that. But rather, when Zacchaeus opened his heart, opened his home, opened his life to Christ, there was a commitment that was given. That I am willing, I am wanting to change. I am going to change. I have made mistakes. I have made so many mistakes that I feel that I cannot even come from. Jesus, I don't even know if this is going to even repair the damage I have done. But you know what? This is a start. That I'm going to commit that my kingdom, my earthly gain or whatever is not going to be my legacy. But my legacy is going to be what I have done for the people beside me through your name, through your love that you have shown to me. This is the commitment I'm going to begin to make even after his mistakes. And we see Zacchaeus commit and giving his property to the poor, giving 4 times back to the people whom he cheated. And we read and we see that Jesus commends him because he sees that he's not just trying to right or wrong. We just see that he's like, oh, I just don't want to feel guilty, and that's it. No, but we read and we can see that Zacchaeus had a change of heart. And how many of us need that as well? You see, a lot of times we can do things out of guilt. We can give back out of guilt. We can do things because of shame. But that doesn't really change us, does it? When we do things out of guilt, when we do things out of shame, there really isn't no change in our hearts. But when we do things out of a change in commitment that we choose to make, our character begins to change. Even our identity begins to change. Because you see, church, we know that we are going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm sorry, I'm not perfect. Actually, you guys all know I'm not perfect. But you're not perfect. You're not going to be perfect. And we will make mistakes. But the question I asked is, what do I do when I make mistakes? What do I do when I mess up? And we see in the story of Zacchaeus, we read in the story of what he did, even though in his life he was a total mess up. Even though his life may not show it, he was a rich man, he lived a life very successful, but he was a mess. But we see what Jesus has done in his life, and that we know that we are not our mistakes. You are not your past mistakes. Because what do I do? What do I do when I mess up? I want people to know this right now is that what do I do is that I am not defined by the mistakes I made, but by how I choose to correct them. You are not defined by the mistakes you've made, but how you choose to correct them. We will make mistakes. Let's just be honest. We will make mistakes. My vows to Susan, to love you unconditionally. Baby, you're going to be number 1. But there's going to be times when we fight. And I'm not going to want to put her number 1. There's going to be times when I do things to her that won't be loving. That I do things because I'm angry or I'm disappointed. And that's not right. It's not. And that's why just saying sorry is not enough. Just saying, no, baby, I love you, is not enough. It was a mistake. That's it. Okay, let it pass. But no, it is how I choose to correct it. How I choose to be a healthier husband. Have a healthier relationship. When I'm with my friends, how do I choose to have healthy relationships? Not just by saying I made a mistake, but learning how I can correct them. Because it is not by my mistakes, but it's how I choose to correct them that shape our character.